The caravan moved slowly through the endless dunes of the Arabian desert. It was noon, and the sun hung like a burning eye in the cloudless sky. The heat was so intense that the air itself seemed to shimmer and dance. Suddenly, the wind stopped. The sand beneath their feet began to glow with an orange light. The temperature rose even higher, making breathing difficult. Then it happened. A pillar of smokeless fire erupted from the sand, reaching toward the heavens like a burning finger of pure rage. The camels screamed and tried to flee, but their legs refused to move. The merchants fell to their knees in terror. Within the column of flames, something began to take shape. Eyes of molten gold appeared first, followed by a form both magnificent and terrifying. This was an Ifrit. In Islamic tradition, the Ifrit represents the most dangerous type of Jinn. While Western culture has reduced genies to wish-granting servants trapped in lamps, the reality in Middle Eastern belief is far more complex and frightening. The Ifrit is not a servant, but a being of immense power and pride. Created from the purest smokeless fire thousands of years before humanity. These creatures possess intelligence equal to or greater than humans. They have their own civilization, their own kings, and their own wars. The word Ifrit itself comes from the Arabic root, meaning to roll in dust or to rebel. Both meanings capture the essence of these beings perfectly. They are creatures of the scorching desert wind, beings who refuse to bow even to the commands of heaven. In the Quran, they appear as builders of impossible palaces and rebellious spirits. In the tales of 1001 Nights, they are both destroyers of kingdoms and unwilling slaves. But who are the Ifrit really? What separates them from other types of Jinn? Why do Islamic texts warn so strongly against encountering them? To understand the Ifrit, we must journey into the heart of Islamic cosmology, where fire was given consciousness, will, and the dangerous gift of pride. This is the story of how flame became flesh, how the desert heat gained a mind, and how some fires burn with hatred that has lasted since the dawn of time. If you're ready to look beyond the veil of forgotten myths and uncover the secrets the world chose to forget, subscribe to Inside Strange Times so you won't miss new journeys into the realm of ancient mysteries. The Quran speaks of a creation that predates humanity by millennia. In Surah Ar-Rahman, verse 15, Allah declares that He created the Jinn from a smokeless flame of fire. The Arabic term used is nar as samum, which translates to the scorching wind or the poisonous fire. This is not ordinary flame, but something far more primordial. Islamic scholars have debated for centuries what exactly smokeless fire means. The great medieval theologian Al-Ghazali wrote that smokeless fire represents pure energy, the essence of heat and light, without the earthly impurities that create smoke. Just as humans were formed from clay and angels from light, the Jinn, including the Ifrit, were shaped from this divine flame. But among all Jinn, the Ifrit are said to be created from the hottest and purest part of this fire. They are the aristocracy of flame. Ibn Kathir, in his famous tafsir, provides additional context. He explains that the smokeless fire is not merely absence of smoke, but represents a supernatural flame that exists beyond physical laws. This fire burns without fuel, consumes without ash, and radiates heat that affects both the physical and spiritual realms. The Ifrit, being formed from the most intense core of this flame, possess qualities that set them apart from all other created beings. Physical descriptions of Ifrit vary across Islamic sources, but certain characteristics remain constant. They are beings of immense size, often described as tall as mountains. The 13th century scholar Ibn Kathir recorded accounts of Ifrit whose heads touched the clouds. Their bodies are said to shimmer between solid and ethereal states. One moment they appear as towering figures wreathed in flame. The next they dissolve into waves of unbearable heat. The scholar Al-Ghazali, in his 9th century work, Kitab al-Hayawan, provides one of the earliest detailed descriptions. He writes that Ifrit appear as pillars of twisting fire, with features that constantly shift like flames in the wind. Their eyes are described as glowing coals, burning with an inner light that never dims. Their voices sound like the roar of a great furnace, or the crack of lightning splitting the sky. When they move, the air around them shimmers, as if reality itself bends under the intensity of their heat. The ability to shapeshift is fundamental to Ifrit nature. They can assume the form of humans, animals, or even inanimate objects. Medieval Arabic texts describe Ifrit appearing as black dogs, serpents of enormous size, or beautiful women who lure men to their doom. The scholar Al-Damiri, in his 14th century work, Hayat al-Hayawan, details how Ifrit prefer forms that inspire either desire or terror. This shape-shifting is not mere illusion, but actual physical transformation. One particularly detailed account comes from Ibn Battuta, the famous 14th century traveler. He describes meeting a man in Damascus who claimed to have witnessed an Ifrit transformation. The creature first appeared as a whirlwind of sand and fire, then condensed into the form of a massive black stallion. Its mane was described as living flame, and wherever its hooves touched the ground, small fires erupted. The transformation took only moments, but left the witnesses paralyzed with fear. The process of shape-shifting itself reveals much about Ifrit nature. Unlike the gradual transformations described for lesser Jinn, Ifrit can change instantaneously. The transformation is often accompanied by intense heat, the smell of sulfur, and a sound like thunder. Some accounts describe the air crackling with energy, similar to the sensation before a lightning strike. This suggests their shape-shifting involves fundamental manipulation of matter and energy. Their intelligence equals or surpasses human capability. Unlike the Western concept of demons as purely evil beings, Ifrit possess free will, just as humans do. They can choose between good and evil, between faith and rebellion. The Quran itself, in Surah al-Jinn, describes how a group of Jinn, listened to the Prophet Muhammad reciting, and some chose to accept Islam. Among these converts were reportedly several Ifrit, though they struggled more than other Jinn with submission due to their prideful nature. The Hadith literature provides specific accounts of Ifrit conversion. In Sahih Muslim, it is narrated that the Prophet said, "An Ifrit from the Jinn came to me last night to interrupt my prayer." The Prophet described how he considered binding the creature to a pillar of the mosque, but remembered his brother Solomon's request to be given a kingdom unlike any other. This hadith suggests not only the reality of Ifrit, but also their continued interaction with humanity. The intellectual capabilities of Ifrit extend beyond mere human knowledge. They possess memories that span millennia, having witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Medieval texts describe Ifrit who could speak every human language, understand the speech of animals, and even communicate with plants and stones. Their knowledge of history, magic, and the hidden workings of nature makes them valuable but dangerous sources of information. Al-Masudi, in his 10th century work, The Meadows of Gold, recounts the story of an Egyptian scholar who summoned an Ifrit. The creature claimed to have served in the court of King Solomon and witnessed the building of the first temple. It described architectural techniques lost to humanity and named the locations of treasures buried beneath the sand. But the price for this knowledge was steep. The scholar aged 20 years in a single night. The powers of an Ifrit extend far beyond physical strength. They command fire in all its forms, from the smallest spark to infernos that can consume entire cities. Ancient texts speak of Ifrit, who could travel from Yemen to Jerusalem in less time than it takes a human to blink. This incredible speed is mentioned specifically in the Quran, when an Ifrit offers to bring the throne of the Queen of Sheba to Prophet Solomon. The Ifrit boasts he could retrieve it before Solomon could even rise from his seat. The exact verse from Surah An-Naml, verse 39 states, "A powerful one from among the Jinn said, 'I will bring it to you before you rise from your place.'" The Arabic word used is Ifritun, which specifically denotes an Ifrit, not just any Jinn. This Quranic attestation gives religious authority to the belief in their extraordinary abilities. The throne of Sheba was not a simple chair, but a massive structure of gold and precious stones. That an Ifrit could transport it instantly across hundreds of miles demonstrates power beyond human comprehension. Beyond fire manipulation, Ifrit possess other supernatural abilities. They can become invisible at will, making them perfect spies and assassins. They have superhuman strength capable of lifting massive boulders or destroying buildings with their bare hands. Some accounts describe Ifrit who could control the weather, summoning sandstorms, or causing droughts through their connection to desert heat. They possess deep knowledge of magic and can cast powerful spells. The medieval text Shams al-Ma'arif describes Ifrit teaching humans forbidden arts in exchange for worship or servitude. The invisibility of Ifrit deserves special attention. Unlike temporary invisibility achieved through magic, Ifrit can maintain this state indefinitely. They can selectively reveal themselves, appearing to one person while remaining hidden from others. This ability makes them particularly dangerous, as they can observe humans undetected for years. Stories tell of Ifrit who lived invisibly in human homes, learning family secrets and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Their magical abilities encompass what Islamic texts call seer or sorcery. Ifrit can create elaborate illusions that affect all five senses. They can inflict diseases that no medicine can cure, or remove ailments that have plagued families for generations. Some possess the power of prophecy, able to see potential futures, though not the fixed destiny known only to Allah. They can bind other spirits to their will, commanding lesser jinn and even some animals. But for all their power, Ifrit have vulnerabilities. Water is their natural enemy, capable of weakening or even destroying them. This is why many stories of imprisoned Ifrit involve them being trapped in vessels thrown into the sea. The touch of pure iron burns their skin like acid. This belief led to the widespread use of iron talismans and weapons in areas where Ifrit encounters were feared. The relationship between Ifrit and water goes beyond simple opposition. Running water in particular seems to create a barrier they cannot easily cross. Rivers and streams have long been considered safe boundaries, especially if the water flows from a sacred source. Salt water holds even greater power, which explains why so many binding rituals involved casting containers into the ocean. The combination of water and salt creates a prison, from which even the mightiest Ifrit cannot escape unaided. Iron affects Ifrit on a fundamental level. The metal seems to disrupt their ethereal nature, forcing them to maintain physical form. An Ifrit struck with iron cannot shapeshift or become invisible until the wound heals, which can take days or even weeks. This vulnerability led to the Islamic tradition of carrying iron rings or amulets for protection. Some warriors would coat their weapons with a mixture of iron filings and sacred oils specifically to combat Jinn. The divine names of Allah hold particular power over them. The 99 names, when properly invoked, can bind an Ifrit or force it to flee. The Ayat al-Kursi, the throne verse from the second chapter of the Quran, is considered especially potent protection. Many Muslims to this day recite it before sleep, believing it creates a barrier no jinn can cross. The effectiveness of divine names requires proper pronunciation and spiritual authority. Simply speaking the words without faith or understanding provides little protection. The 10th century scholar Al-Buni wrote extensively about the conditions necessary for divine names to affect Jinn. The person must be in a state of ritual purity, have sincere faith, and understand the meaning of what they recite. Even then, powerful Ifrit may resist, requiring repeated invocations and additional protective measures. Salt represents another weakness, though scholars debate why. Some suggest that salt's association with preservation and purity makes it antithetical to the chaotic nature of fire beings. Others point to pre-Islamic Arabian beliefs, where salt circles were used to create sacred spaces. Whatever the reason, numerous accounts describe Ifrit unable to cross lines of salt or being repelled by food heavily seasoned with it. The use of salt extends beyond simple lines or circles. Complex geometric patterns drawn in salt can trap an Ifrit for extended periods. The patterns must be precise, as even small gaps allow the creature to escape. Some traditions specify particular types of salt: rock salt from the Dead Sea or black salt from volcanic regions. The salt must remain dry and unbroken, which makes this method impractical in many situations. Additional vulnerabilities include certain plants and incenses. Rue, known in Arabic as harmal, has long been burned to repel Jinn. Its smoke causes Ifrit physical discomfort, forcing them to maintain distance. Frankincense and myrrh also possess protective properties, particularly when blessed by religious authorities. The wood of the tamarisk tree is said to be particularly effective against fire Jinn. The character of Ifrit is defined above all by pride. This pride exceeds even that of other Jinn, making them extremely difficult to control or reason with. They consider themselves superior to humans, viewing mankind as weak creatures made from mere mud. This attitude mirrors that of Iblis himself, the first of the Jinn to rebel against Allah's command to bow to Adam. Many Islamic scholars believe Iblis was actually an Ifrit, which would explain his exceptional pride and power. The pride of Ifrit manifests in numerous ways. They refuse to serve unless compelled by overwhelming force or bound by unbreakable oaths. Even when forced into service, they constantly seek loopholes, ways to turn commands against those who issued them. They take offense at the slightest perceived insult, and their anger can smolder for centuries. This pride makes them poor servants, but formidable enemies. Revenge drives many Ifrit interactions with humans. They have perfect memory and never forget a slight. Stories abound of Ifrit waiting centuries to take vengeance on the descendants of those who wronged them. The Arabian Nights contains numerous tales of Ifrit pursuing blood feuds across generations. This vengeful nature makes them extremely dangerous, even when they appear to offer help or friendship. One famous account from the Kitab al-Jinn describes an Ifrit who waited 300 years to avenge an insult. A merchant had unknowingly built his house over the Ifrit's dwelling place. Rather than immediately destroy the man, the Ifrit waited and struck at his descendants when they had grown wealthy and comfortable. The creature took particular pleasure in watching the family lose everything they had built. Yet not all Ifrit are evil. Islamic tradition acknowledges that, like humans, they exist on a moral spectrum. Some Ifrit have chosen to follow the straight path and worship Allah. These righteous Ifrit sometimes aid worthy humans, though always on their own terms, never as servants. The distinction is crucial because it separates Islamic understanding from the simplified evil demon concept. Ifrit are dangerous not because they are inherently evil, but because they are powerful beings with their own agendas. To understand the true nature of Ifrit, we must first comprehend the broader hierarchy of Jinn in Islamic cosmology. The Jinn are not a single species, but rather a diverse race, with multiple tribes and types, each possessing distinct characteristics. Medieval Islamic scholars spent centuries cataloging and classifying these beings, creating detailed taxonomies that rival any modern scientific classification. The word jinn itself comes from the Arabic root jinn, which means to hide or to conceal. This etymology reveals a fundamental aspect of their nature. They are the hidden ones, existing parallel to our visible world. The Quran mentions jinn in over 30 verses, establishing their reality as an article of faith. To deny the existence of jinn is considered kufr, a rejection of Allah's clear revelation. At the apex of jinn society stand the Marid. These are the most powerful of all jinn associated with water and the sea. The Marid are described as beings of immense magical ability, capable of granting wishes that can alter reality itself. They are the blue jinn of the ocean depths, the spirits of great rivers and lakes. In raw magical power, they exceed even the Ifrit, though they are fewer in number and slower to anger. The Marid deserve extensive examination to understand their relationship with Ifrit. These water giants are described in various texts as having skin like polished sapphire. They can command sea creatures, raise or calm storms, and cause springs to emerge from barren rock. Their palaces lie beneath the waves, constructed from pearl and coral with foundations of solid water. The famous Marid king Barkhan, mentioned in several medieval texts, ruled an empire that stretched across the Indian Ocean. Physical descriptions of Marid emphasize their aquatic nature. They stand even taller than Ifrit, some accounts claiming heights of 60 cubits or more. Their hair flows like seaweed, and their breath smells of ocean brine. When they speak, their voices carry the sound of waves, crashing against distant shores. Unlike the burning touch of Ifrit, Marid radiate a cold that can freeze blood in the veins. The relationship between Marid and Ifrit has been described as an eternal rivalry. Water and fire, the elements from which they draw their power, are natural opposites. Ancient Arabic texts speak of great battles between Marid sultans and Ifrit kings, conflicts that caused tsunamis and volcanic eruptions. The tension between these two types of jinn reflects a fundamental duality in Islamic mysticism: the cooling mercy of water versus the purifying wrath of fire. One epic battle, described in the Chronicles of the Hidden Kingdoms, tells of the war between Sultan Muzahim of the Ifrit and King Shamar of the Marid. The conflict began over control of the Strait of Hormuz, where fire mountains meet the sea. For 7 years, the battle raged, creating the chain of volcanic islands that exist there today. Neither side achieved total victory, and a truce was eventually declared. The boundary between their realms remains a place of constant tension where steam rises eternally. Below the Merid and Ifrit in power, though not necessarily in nobility, come the Jinn or Jinni. These are the common Jinn, the ones most likely to interact with humans. They possess significant supernatural abilities, but lack the raw elemental power of their greater cousins. The Jinni can be good, evil, or morally neutral. Many of the Jinn who converted to Islam during the Prophet's lifetime were of this middle rank. The common Jinn display remarkable diversity in form and temperament. Some appear as dust devils dancing across the desert. Others take the shape of birds, particularly hoopoes and owls. Many prefer to remain invisible, living alongside humans undetected. They build their homes in abandoned places, ruins, bathrooms, and garbage dumps. This preference for unclean spaces has led to numerous Islamic hygiene practices designed to avoid disturbing them. The social structure of common Jinn mirrors human society. They have families, tribes, and complex social hierarchies. Marriage and divorce exist among them, following rules similar but not identical to human customs. They engage in trade warfare and politics. Some Jinn tribes have maintained feuds for thousands of years, while others have formed lasting alliances. The dynamics of Jinn society remain largely mysterious, as few humans have observed them directly. The Ghul or Ghoul represents a more sinister category. These are the Jinn who feed on the dead and dying. They haunt graveyards and battlefields, taking the form of hyenas or other carrion eaters. The Ghoul are shapeshifters par excellence, often appearing as beautiful women to lure travelers to their doom. Unlike Ifrit, who kill through fire and fury, Ghoul prefer deception and slow consumption of their victims. The nature of Ghoul has been extensively documented in Arabic literature. They are described as having a split personality, alternating between seductive beauty and horrifying monstrosity. Their true form is said to be hideous, with donkey's hooves, backwards feet, and iron teeth. They can mimic human voices perfectly, calling out to travelers using the names of their loved ones. Once a victim is isolated, the Ghoul reveals its true nature and devours them, starting with the liver and heart. Female Ghoul called Ghula are particularly feared. They target children and pregnant women, drawn by innocence and new life. Stories tell of Ghula infiltrating households, replacing wet nurses to feed on infant blood. They can maintain human disguise for months, slowly draining the life force from their victims. Only certain signs reveal their nature: an aversion to salt, inability to cross running water, and feet that never quite touch the ground. The Sila are the rarest of the major Jinn types. These beings are master shapeshifters, even beyond the abilities of Ifrit. They can maintain complex human disguises for years, living entire false lives among human communities. Some accounts suggest Sila are actually a hybrid, born from unions between jinn and humans. They are said to be highly intelligent but emotionally unstable, torn between their dual natures. Historical accounts of Sila are sparse but disturbing. The historian Al-Masudi records the case of a Sila who lived as a respected merchant in Baghdad for 20 years. Only when the creature's daughter reached marriageable age did its true nature become apparent. The Sila fled into the desert, but not before revealing that dozens of the city's residents were actually jinn in disguise. This revelation caused panic and led to the development of various tests to identify hidden jinn. At the bottom of the hierarchy are the Hin and the Jan. These are the weakest of jinn, barely more powerful than a strong human. The Hin are described as cowardly creatures who flee at the first sign of danger. They can create minor illusions and small mischiefs, but lack the power for serious harm. Some scholars argue these are not true jinn at all, but rather a related species of supernatural being. The Jan are often confused with jinn in general, but represent a specific weak category. They are said to be the ancestors of all jinn, the original beings from which other types evolved. Jan inhabit the deep desert, avoiding both humans and other jinn. They possess minimal supernatural abilities, limited to minor shape-shifting and creating mirages. Some traditions suggest righteous Jan can ascend to become more powerful types of jinn through devotion. This hierarchy exists within a broader Islamic cosmological framework. According to the Quran, Allah created 3 types of intelligent beings. The angels were formed from light, perfect in their obedience, but lacking free will. Humans were shaped from clay, given free will, but limited in power and perception. The jinn, including all their various types, were created from smokeless fire and given both free will and supernatural power. The angels, called malaika in Arabic, exist in their own hierarchy. At the highest level stand the archangels, Jibril, who brings revelation, Mikael, who controls nature, Israfil, who will blow the trumpet on Judgment Day, and Azrael, the angel of death. Below them, countless angels perform specific functions, recording deeds, protecting believers, and maintaining cosmic order. Angels have no free will. They cannot disobey Allah or choose evil. This fundamental difference separates them from both humans and jinn. The interaction between these 3 races forms the core of Islamic eschatology. Humans and jinn will be judged on the day of resurrection, while angels serve as witnesses and executors of divine justice. Both humans and jinn can earn paradise or damnation based on their choices in life. The Quran explicitly states that hell will be filled with both humans and jinn who rejected divine guidance. The temporal sequence of creation is significant. Islamic tradition holds that jinn were created 2,000 years before Adam, the first human. For 2 millennia, they were the sole intelligent inhabitants of Earth. They built great civilizations, waged terrible wars, and spread across the planet. Some accounts describe prehistoric ruins in the deepest deserts as remnants of these pre-Adamite Jinn cities. These ancient Jinn civilizations remain largely mysterious. The few descriptions that exist speak of cities built from brass and flame, towers that touch the clouds supported by pillars of smoke, libraries containing knowledge of sciences humanity has yet to discover. The Jinn mastered flight metallurgy and energy manipulation thousands of years before humans discovered fire. Their greatest achievement was said to be a flying city that could travel between Earth and the lower heavens. The creation of humanity marked a turning point in Jinn history, when Allah commanded all beings to bow before Adam, recognizing humanity's special status despite their apparent weakness. Most Jinn obeyed. But Iblis, chief among the Jinn, refused. His argument was logical from a material perspective. Fire is superior to clay, so why should the greater bow to the lesser? The identity of Iblis has been debated for centuries. The Quran calls him both a jinn and the leader of the shayatin, or devils. Many scholars, including Ibn Abbas, cousin of the Prophet, argued that Iblis was an Ifrit. This would explain his immense pride and power, as well as his ability to lead other rebellious jinn. The name Iblis itself derives from the Arabic root meaning to despair, reflecting his fall from grace. Some traditions provide more detail about Iblis before his fall. He was said to be so devoted in worship that Allah elevated him to the rank of the angels. For thousands of years, he prayed in every corner of creation. His knowledge of divine mysteries exceeded all other jinn. This makes his rebellion even more tragic. He knew the truth, yet chose defiance. His transformation from devoted servant to arch rebel serves as a warning about the dangers of pride. The rebellion of Iblis created a fundamental schism in Jinn society. Those who followed him became the shayatin, dedicated to leading humans and other jinn astray. Those who remained obedient to Allah continued to live according to divine law. The majority of jinn fall somewhere between these extremes, neither wholly good nor completely evil. The shayatin deserve special attention as corrupted jinn. They have lost much of their original power, transformed by their rebellion into creatures of pure malevolence. Unlike other jinn who can choose between good and evil, shayatin are locked into their opposition to divine will. They whisper evil suggestions to humans and jinn alike, but cannot force anyone to sin. Their power lies in deception and temptation, not direct control. This cosmic drama plays out in the Quranic telling repeatedly. Surah Al-Hijr, verses 26 through 35, provides the detailed account of Iblis's refusal and subsequent curse. Allah grants Iblis respite until the day of judgment, allowing him to test humanity's faith. This arrangement makes Earth a battleground, where humans, jinn, and shayatin interact in complex ways. The pre-Islamic Arabs had their own understanding of jinn, which Islam both incorporated and modified. The Jahiliyyah period, Arabs believed jinn inhabited every unusual geological formation. Twisted trees, strange rocks, and especially caves and ruins were thought to house powerful spirits. The Ifrit, in particular, were associated with the scorching winds that blow across the Arabian Peninsula. These desert dwellers knew the Ifrit as the spirits of the Samum, the poisonous wind that kills through dehydration and heat stroke. When sandstorms arose suddenly, blocking out the sun and filling the air with choking dust, the Bedouin saw the work of angry Ifrit. They had elaborate rituals for appeasing these beings, including leaving offerings of food and water at certain landmarks. The relationship between pre-Islamic Arabs and jinn was complex. Some tribes claim descent from unions between humans and jinn. The Banu Makhzum, one of the major clans of Mecca, traced their lineage to a marriage with a jinniya. Poets called sha'ir were believed to have jinn companions who provided them with eloquent verses. The greatest pre-Islamic poetry was attributed to inspiration from these supernatural muses. Sacred spaces in pre-Islamic Arabia often centered on jinn worship. The Valley of Nakhla contained a shrine where pilgrims sought the favor of the jinn lords. Certain wells and springs were protected by jinn guardians who demanded offerings before allowing access to water. The black stone of the Kaaba itself was sometimes associated with jinn power, though Islam firmly rejected this connection. The coming of Islam transformed but did not eliminate these beliefs. The Quran acknowledges the existence of jinn, but forbids worshipping them or seeking their aid. The practice of seer or sorcery, which often involved commanding jinn, became a major sin. Yet, the belief in jinn as real beings remained not just permitted but required. To deny the existence of jinn is to deny the clear words of the Quran itself. Medieval Islamic scholars systematized the folklore about jinn into elaborate theoretical frameworks. Ibn Taymiyyah, the 13th century theologian, wrote extensively about the nature of jinn and their interaction with humans. He argued that jinn exist in a parallel dimension, occasionally intersecting with our world. This intersection occurs at specific times and places, dawn and dusk boundaries between day and night. Ibn Taymiyyah's categorization of jinn interactions remains influential. He identified 3 types of human-jinn contact. First, accidental encounters where humans unknowingly disturb jinn. Second, deliberate summoning through magic and rituals. Third, divine permission, where Allah allows contact for specific purposes. Each type carries different spiritual and legal implications within Islamic jurisprudence. Al-Ghazali approached the subject from a mystical perspective. In his revival of the religious sciences, he describes jinn as beings of subtle matter, existing on a plane between the purely physical and purely spiritual. He compared them to the human imagination, which can create forms without substance. Yet he insisted they were objectively real, not mere psychological phenomena. The influence of Persian Zoroastrianism on Islamic Jinn lore cannot be ignored. The Zoroastrian divs, or devas, bear striking similarities to the Islamic Jinn. Both are powerful spirits associated with natural forces. Both can be good or evil. Both interact with humans in complex ways. When Islam spread into Persia, these older beliefs merged with Quranic teachings. The Persian influence is particularly evident in the elaboration of Ifrit mythology. Persian texts describe the Ifrit as commanders in the armies of darkness. They lead lesser jinn in battles against the forces of light. This militaristic characterization, while not explicitly Quranic, became widely accepted. The Ifrit transformed from simply powerful jinn into organized warriors of the supernatural realm. The Arabian Nights contains perhaps the most famous Ifrit story ever told. The tale of the fisherman and the jinni begins with a poor fisherman casting his net into the sea 4 times each day. On one fateful morning, his net brings up not fish, but a copper jar sealed with lead. The seal bears the mark of Solomon, son of David. Curiosity overcomes caution, and the fisherman opens the ancient vessel. Smoke pours from the jar, rising higher and higher until it forms into a massive Ifrit. The creature towers above the terrified fisherman, its eyes burning with centuries of rage. The Ifrit speaks, declaring that he will grant the fisherman one choice in how he wishes to die. The fisherman asks why death is his only option. The Ifrit's answer reveals the psychology of these proud beings. For the first 100 years of imprisonment, the Ifrit vowed to make whoever freed him rich beyond measure. No one came. For the second 100 years, he promised to grant 3 wishes to his liberator. Still, no one came. For the third 100 years, he swore to serve his rescuer as a loyal servant for life. The jar remained sealed. By the 4th century, his pride had transformed into rage. He vowed that whoever freed him would die, though he would allow them to choose their death. The fisherman saves himself through cleverness, not strength. He expresses doubt that such a massive being could fit inside such a small jar. The Ifrit's pride cannot bear this challenge to his power. To prove his abilities, he transforms back into smoke and enters the jar. The fisherman immediately seals it, threatening to throw it back into the sea. Only after extracting an oath of safety does he release the Ifrit again. This tale illustrates several key aspects of Ifrit nature. Their pride makes them vulnerable to manipulation. Their rage grows with time rather than diminishing. They are bound by oaths sworn on Allah's name. A clever human can outwit even the most powerful Ifrit if they understand these weaknesses. The story became a template for countless other tales of human Ifrit interaction. Another significant story from the Arabian Nights is the City of Brass. The Caliph sends an expedition to find brass bottles containing jinn imprisoned by Solomon. The journey leads to a city of brass and gold, surrounded by walls with no visible entrance. The city appears magnificent but utterly silent. When the explorers finally enter, they discover every inhabitant frozen in place. The city's destruction came from releasing an imprisoned Ifrit. The queen had acquired one of Solomon's bottles, believing the Ifrit inside would grant her wishes. Instead, the creature destroyed everyone in the city, freezing them in their final moments. The explorers find the queen on her throne, surrounded by treasures, but dead for centuries. Her final inscription warns that all power and wealth mean nothing before death. The story of the second Calendar presents a different view of Ifrit. A prince transformed into an ape by an evil Ifrit seeks help from a princess who knows magic. The princess herself is pursued by another Ifrit who desires her for his bride. The two Ifrit battle in spectacular fashion, transforming into various animals and elements. They become lions, then scorpions, then eagles, each trying to destroy the other. Finally, they transform into pure flame, battling as two pillars of fire. The princess defeats the evil Ifrit, but at terrible cost. She explains that battling an Ifrit in their element of fire requires sacrificing part of one's own essence. Though she wins, she is mortally wounded. Her death demonstrates that even with knowledge and power, fighting an Ifrit directly remains extremely dangerous. The tale warns against confronting these beings without absolute necessity. Medieval Arabic chronicles contain accounts presented as historical fact. Ibn Battuta, the 14th century traveler, describes an encounter near the ruins of Babylon. His caravan made camp near ancient ruins despite local warnings. During the night, they heard terrible sounds like the roaring of 1,000 furnaces. A pillar of fire appeared, moving through the ruins, searching for something. One of the guides recognized this as an Ifrit guarding treasures buried in the ruins. He instructed everyone to remain silent and motionless. The Ifrit passed through their camp 3 times its heat, so intense that water bags burst. Only at dawn did the creature return to the ruins. The caravan fled immediately, leaving behind equipment rather than risk another night. Al-Masudi, in The Meadows of Gold, recounts the story of the Ifrit of Palmyra. This creature haunted the ancient city's ruins, attacking any who tried to remove stones for building. Local tribes spoke of seeing it at sunset, a giant figure wreathed in flames, walking the old Roman roads. Several attempts to banish it failed, including one by a famous Islamic scholar. The Ifrit remained, claiming the ruins as its domain until an earthquake buried much of the site. The Chronicle of Damascus from the 12th century tells of an Ifrit that terrorized villages near Mount Lebanon. The creature would appear as a beautiful woman, luring young men into the wilderness. Their bodies would be found days later, burned from the inside out. A holy man named Sheikh Ahmad attempted to confront the Ifrit. He spent 40 days in prayer and fasting, preparing for the battle. The confrontation occurred at a crossroads known for supernatural activity. The sheikh recited verses from the Quran while the Ifrit manifested as a whirlwind of fire. For 3 days and nights, they contested, neither able to overcome the other. Finally, the sheikh offered a bargain. The Ifrit would leave the region in exchange for the location of a treasure it had lost centuries ago. The creature agreed and departed, though some say it still returns every 7th year. Pre-Islamic legends preserved in Islamic sources provide context for these beliefs. The Days of the Arabs collections record stories from Befo, where the prophet's revelation. One tells of the Ifrit of the empty quarter, a creature older than human memory. It ruled over a city of Jinn built from black stone and perpetual flame. Humans who stumbled upon this city either died instantly or returned mad. The poet Imru al-Qais supposedly encountered this Ifrit. Lost in a sandstorm, he found shelter in a cave. Inside, he discovered inscriptions in an unknown language and walls that radiated heat without fire. An Ifrit appeared, claiming to be the last survivor of a Jinn civilization destroyed in a war with the Merid. It offered to teach him the language of fire in exchange for his most precious possession. The poet fled rather than pay the price. Persian influences brought new elements to Ifrit stories. The tale of Malik al-Aswad, the Black King, comes from Persian sources. This Ifrit ruled over a kingdom beneath Mount Damavand, where the hero Rostam had imprisoned the demon Zahak. The Ifrit served as Zahak's jailer, ensuring the demon remained bound. But over millennia, the Ifrit grew corrupt, demanding human sacrifices from nearby villages. A Persian prince named Bahram sought to end the sacrifices. He descended into the mountain through volcanic vents, protected by talismans and prayers. In the depths, he found not one, but dozens of Ifrit, all serving the Black King. The prince challenged the king to single combat, wagering his life against the freedom of the villages. Through courage and divine assistance, he prevailed, binding the Black King with chains of meteoric iron. Berber traditions from North Africa add unique perspectives. The Ifrit of the Sahara are described differently than their Arabian counterparts. These desert spirits appear as pillars of sand and fire moving across the dunes like living storms. They guard the graves of ancient kings and the ruins of cities swallowed by sand. Unlike Arabian Ifrit, they rarely take human form, preferring their elemental nature. One Berber legend tells of 7 Ifrit brothers who controlled the 7 wells of life. These wells could cure any disease, grant extended life, and restore youth. But the Ifrit demanded terrible prices: the firstborn child, the ability to love, or half of one's remaining years. A wise woman named Kahina negotiated with the Ifrit for her people's access to water. She offered them something more valuable than human lives: the secret of creating new wells. Andalusian Muslim sources from medieval Spain contain unique Ifrit encounters. The Chronicle of Cordoba describes an Ifrit imprisoned in Roman ruins near the city. Construction workers accidentally released it while expanding the city walls. The creature destroyed several buildings before a visiting scholar from Damascus contained it. He used a combination of Quranic verses and geometric patterns drawn in silver dust. Stories of love between humans and Ifrit, though rare, exist. The tale of Prince Saif and the Ifrit princess tells of a forbidden romance. the prince discovered an Ifrit princess bathing in a hidden oasis. She had taken human form, and he fell instantly in love. Their romance lasted 7 years, producing 3 children. But when her father, the Ifrit king, discovered the union, he burned the prince to ash. The princess preserved his soul in a ruby, waiting for the day of judgment to reunite. The Ottoman period brought systematic collection of Ifrit lore. Turkish scholars compiled centuries of accounts, creating encyclopedic works. The Book of Wonders and Rarities contains over 50 Ifrit stories. These range from simple encounters to complex theological discussions. The Ottoman sultans employed official Jinn experts to advise on supernatural matters. One Ottoman account describes the Ifrit of Topkapi. This creature supposedly lived in the palace foundations placed there by Mehmed the Conqueror. It protected the Ottoman treasury, destroying any thief who entered. Several janissaries reported seeing it a figure of blue flame patrolling the lower vaults. When the empire fell, the Ifrit vanished, taking with it knowledge of hidden treasures. No discussion of Ifrit can be complete without examining their relationship with Prophet Solomon. Known as Suleiman in Arabic, he stands unique among all prophets. Allah granted him authority over wind, jinn, and animals. The Quran states in Surah Sad, verse 36, that Allah subjected the wind to flow gently at his command. Verse 37 adds, and also the devils every builder and diver. The gift of controlling jinn came with conditions. Solomon had to use this power for Allah's glory, not personal gain. He employed jinn in building the temple in Jerusalem, a task beyond human capability. The construction required moving massive stones, crafting impossible architectures, and completing work that would take humans centuries. The jinn, and especially the powerful Ifrit, accomplished this in 7 years. The source of Solomon's power was his ring, the legendary Khatam Sulaiman. This seal bore the greatest name of Allah, known only to Solomon. Made from iron and brass, it combined the 2 metals that affect jinn. When Solomon wore the ring, no jinn could disobey him. They could not lie to him, escape his presence, or resist his commands. The ring made him absolute master over all supernatural beings except angels. Islamic sources provide details about how Solomon received the ring. The angel Jibril delivered it directly from Allah. 4 jewels adorned it, each controlling different aspects of creation. The first commanded wind and weather. The second controlled all living creatures. The third gave power over jinn and spirits. The fourth allowed communication with all of creation. The organization of jinn under Solomon was remarkably structured. He appointed kings and chiefs from among them, creating a hierarchy of command. The Ifrit served as his elite forces, handling the most challenging tasks. Regular jinn performed construction and labor. The diving jinn retrieved treasures from the ocean depths. Even the rebellious shayatin were forced to serve, though they required constant supervision. One famous Quranic account involves the throne of Bilqis, the queen of Sheba. Solomon wanted her throne brought to Jerusalem before she arrived for their meeting. Surah An-Naml verse 39 describes the scene. An Ifrit from the Jinn said, "I will bring it to you before you rise from your place. And indeed, I am for this task strong and trustworthy." But another with knowledge of the book brought it in the blink of an eye. This passage reveals important aspects of Ifrit capabilities. The Ifrit's offer shows their incredible speed and strength. Yet someone with divine knowledge surpassed even the Ifrit's supernatural abilities. Some scholars identify this knowledgeable one as Asif ibn Barkiya, Solomon's vizier. Others suggest it was Solomon himself, demonstrating that divine knowledge exceeds raw power. The construction of the temple showcases Solomon's systematic use of Jinn labor. Different types handled specific tasks. Ifrit melted and shaped metals using their natural heat. Marid channeled water for cooling and transport. Common Jinn carved stone and wood. Flying Jinn lifted materials to great heights. The coordination required demonstrates Solomon's absolute control over these beings. Not all Jinn accepted Solomon's authority willingly. The Ifrit Sakhr led a major rebellion. This powerful Ifrit had ruled over vast Jinn territories before Solomon's rise. He refused to acknowledge human authority regardless of divine mandate. The rebellion involved thousands of Jinn and threatened to destroy Solomon's kingdom. The battle between Solomon and Sakhr lasted 40 days and nights. Sakhr appeared as a mountain of fire, burning everything in his path. Solomon's human armies fled in terror, but the prophet stood firm, protected by his ring and faith. He recited divine names that had never been spoken since creation's dawn. Finally, Solomon bound Sakhr with chains forged from meteoric iron and blessed with prayers. As punishment, he imprisoned the Ifrit in a bottle of thick glass. He sealed it with lead and his ring's impression. Then he cast it into the deepest part of the sea, near what is now Yemen. Sakhr remained imprisoned until a fisherman released him centuries later. The methods Solomon used to control Jinn became the foundation for later magical practices. He employed specific formulas combining divine names, Quranic verses, and geometric patterns. The pentagram, often associated with Solomon, actually represents the five-fold nature of creation. Each point corresponds to an element, including the smokeless fire of Jinn. Solomon's workers among the Jinn created wonders beyond modern comprehension. They built flying vehicles that could transport entire armies in hours. They constructed underwater cities with walls of solid water held by magic. They forged weapons that could cut through any material except other magical items. These artifacts disappeared after Solomon's death, hidden by the Jinn who created them. The relationship between Solomon and the Jinn wasn't entirely based on domination. Some Jinn served willingly, recognizing his prophet status. He appointed Jinn judges to settle disputes within their communities. He established laws governing Jinn-human interactions. These laws included prohibitions on intermarriage, possession, and harmful magic. One touching story involves an Ifrit named Damriyat. This Ifrit had served Solomon faithfully for 20 years. When his daughter fell ill, no Jinn medicine could cure her. Solomon himself prayed for her recovery. Allah healed her, and Damriyat swore eternal loyalty to Solomon's bloodline. Some say his descendants still protect certain sites in Jerusalem. The death of Solomon revealed the complex nature of Jinn servitude. The Quran relates that Solomon died while leaning on his staff. The Jinn continued working unaware of his death. Only when termites ate through the staff, causing his body to fall, did they realize. Surah Saba verse 14 states, "He Jinn clearly saw that if they had known the unseen, they would not have remained in humiliating punishment." This narrative serves multiple purposes. It demonstrates that Jinn, despite their power, cannot perceive the unseen realm. It shows their servitude was enforced, not voluntary for many. It also suggests that Solomon's control ended immediately upon his death. The Jinn scattered, returning to their domains, taking much knowledge with them. After Solomon's death, the methods of controlling Jinn became corrupted and dangerous. The Babylonians, Harut and Marut, taught magic that included Jinn summoning. But this magic came with warnings that it would lead to damnation. The Temple of Solomon became a center for magical practices, mixing truth with falsehood. Jewish traditions preserved in the Talmud provide additional details. They describe Solomon's conversations with Jinn, learning their languages and customs. He cataloged different types of spirits, creating the first demonological texts. These writings influenced later grimoires throughout the Mediterranean world. The Testament of Solomon, likely written in Greek between 1st and 3rd century, claims to record Solomon's own words about controlling demons. While not accepted as authentic, it influenced Islamic and Christian demonology. The text describes binding formulas, divine names, and protective circles. Many elements appear in later Islamic texts about Jinn and magic. Medieval Islamic scholars debated the legitimacy of Solomonic magic. Some argued that since Solomon was a prophet, his methods were divinely sanctioned. Others claimed that only Solomon could safely use such power. The consensus emerged that attempting to replicate Solomon's control over Jinn constituted dangerous sorcery. The search for Solomon's ring has continued throughout history. Legends place it in various locations, from the Dead Sea to hidden chambers beneath Jerusalem. Some say the ring was divided, its pieces scattered to prevent misuse. Others claim it ascended to heaven, awaiting the Mahdi's arrival. The Ifrits supposedly know its location but will never reveal it to humans. The Ifrit stands as one of humanity's most enduring and terrifying supernatural concepts. From the windswept deserts of pre-Islamic Arabia to the theological treatises of medieval scholars, these beings of smokeless fire have captured our deepest fears. They represent power without restraint, intelligence without compassion, and pride that challenges heaven itself. What makes the Ifrit particularly fascinating is their position between multiple worlds. They are neither purely evil like the shayateen, nor purely obedient like the angels. They possess free will yet are bound by divine law. They can choose righteousness or rebellion, salvation or damnation. In this way, they mirror humanity itself, though, with powers that dwarf our capabilities. The Islamic tradition's preservation of Jinn belief, including the dangerous Ifrit, speaks to something deeper than mere superstition. While Christianity transformed its spirits into demons and secular thought dismissed them entirely, Islam maintained a complex taxonomy of supernatural beings. The Ifrit remains real for over 1 billion believers, not as metaphor, but as actual creation. This preservation serves theological purposes. The existence of Jinn validates free will, showing that even powerful beings can choose their path. It demonstrates Allah's creative diversity beings of clay, light, and fire. It provides tests for humanity, challenges that require faith and wisdom to overcome. The Ifrit specifically embodies the danger of pride, the same sin that caused Iblis to fall. Modern Muslims continue to navigate the reality of Jinn in their daily lives. Ruqya practitioners treat possession using Quranic verses and prophetic methods. Scholars debate the interaction between Jinn phenomena and mental illness. Parents teach children protective prayers while warning against summoning or contacting Jinn. The Ifrit remains the most feared, the type of Jinn that appears in nightmares. What does it mean that humanity needs beings like the Ifrit in our cosmology? Perhaps we require external representations of our internal struggles with power and pride. Perhaps the Ifrit serves as a warning about the corruption that comes from unchecked strength. Or perhaps in a universe that often feels empty, we need to populate it with beings that reflect both our aspirations and our fears. The Ifrit ultimately represents fire, given consciousness, will, and the terrible freedom to choose. In the dance of flames, we see chaos and beauty, destruction and purification, power and vulnerability. When that flame gains the ability to think, to plan, to hate, and perhaps to love, it becomes something that challenges our understanding of existence itself. The Ifrit is not merely a monster from ancient tales, but a mirror held to the burning questions that define what it means to be conscious in a universe where even fire can choose its path.